Plato, the Symposium, translated with an introduction and notes by Christopher Gill, a Penguin book. Introduction. Plato's Symposium is one of the most striking and famous studies of love in Western thought. It is both a powerful philosophical examination of love and a great work of literature, in which the dramatic representation of characteristics reinforces intellectual speech-making and argument. Together with Plato's other works on this topic, the Symposium has been immensely influential on thinking about love from antiquity to present day, especially in the Italian Renaissance. It offers us a special insight into two central features of social life in classical Greece: the formal drinking party and homosexuality, or homoeroticism. Although it reflects its specific historical situation, the Symposium is highly accessible to modern readers. It raises questions about love that are absolutely fundamental. The most important speech, that of Socrates, serves as a challenge to the unexamined romanticism of much modern thinking. Is the Symposium about love or desire? Plato's dialogue centers on a series of speeches praising eros, a term usually translated desire. One of the meanings of eros is passionate sexual desire, and it is also the name of one of the two Greek gods of love, Eros in Italian, Cupid. But some of the speeches, especially Socrates's, suggest that sexual desire is an expression of a certain deeper and more universal type of desire or motivation. The speeches also link eros with the kind of affectionate concern that forms part of close relationships between family members or friends. The normal Greek term for this concern is philia, often translated as friendship. So taken as a whole, eros in the Symposium has the same broad range of meanings as love, and is usually translated that way in this translation. Most of the speeches are about the kind of love that modern readers can easily recognize as that, located in emotionally charged relationships between individual people. However, as noticed, Socrates places eros in a much broader framework, and one of the key questions raised by the Symposium is whether Socrates' speech is about interpersonal love or about human desire and motivation in general. The Symposium in Greek life. Plato's dialogue represents a symposium. What is this? Though this can be translated rather inadequately as drinks party, it's closer to a modern private dinner party. But there are important differences between a Greek symposium and a modern dinner party. These reflect the male-dominated character of Greek social life and the relative segregation of male and female activities. They also reflect the ritualization of social life, even in what we see as areas of privacy or informality. For one thing, the host and guests were all men. The symposium took place in the andron, the main room of the men's part of the house, and in archaic Greece, 6th or 7th century BC, the symposium seems to have served as an important context of male bonding between aristocrats, the dominant group in Greek states at the time. Aristocratic young men and boys took part as cupbearers and observers and received both ethical advice and homoerotic attention. In these ways, they were initiated into adult male social life. In late 5th century Athens, where Plato's dialogue is set, the symposium remained a largely aristocratic pastime, although Athens was by then a democracy. The participants were now adult males. Free-born boys no longer took part, and their place was taken by male and female slaves who provided service and entertainment. By contrast with the modern dinner party, there was a clear separation between the meal and the subsequent drinking, and the drinking was more fully ritualized. After the meal was cleared away, the guests had their hands washed and were sometimes garlanded with flowers and anointed with perfumed oils. The symposium began with a taste of unmixed wine poured in honor of the good spirit, the daimon, and accompanied by hymns of the god. Subsequently, wine was mixed with water in a bowl or a crater, normally in the proportion of 5 parts water to 2 parts of wine. The resulting drink was comparable in strength with modern beer. One person, the symposiarch, was elected to set, in consultation with others, the precise strength of the wine mixture, the number of bowls to be mixed, 3 was a standard number, and the size of cups to be used. The andron was a square room with a raised floor on all sides, on which were arranged typically between 7 and 11 couches. Guests reclined on the couches, usually 2 to a couch, leaning on cushions with their left elbows, leaving their right hands free to eat and drink from low tables in front of them. The couches formed a square, broken by the door. The first position, in front of the door, seems to have been most favored, perhaps as the first to be served food, and the last least so. This arrangement promoted reciprocal conversation or song around and across the square. Wine and taking turns in song or speech went around the room, usually from left to right. The windowless room often had wall paintings. The scenes, like those on the decorated mixing bowl and cups, might be those of symposia or erotic encounters. The whole context created a sealed and privileged space in which the attention of the guests was focused on each other and on their shared enjoyment of wine, talk, music, and sensuality. The erotic company was provided by female slave courtesans and sometimes their male equivalents, who served as musical entertainers and escorts. Their erotic role at the symposium seems to have been more or less explicit flirtation rather than sexual intercourse, which might have occurred later. Plato's Symposium is in many ways typical of this social practice, for which it provides useful evidence. But the director of Plato's Symposium, Eryximachus, conspicuously sends away the female entertainer provided by Agathon, their host. This signals the unusually intellectual character of this symposium. With its series of speeches on the nature of love, it also paves the way for a focus on homoerotic love. The intensely philosophical mood created by Socrates' speech is shattered by the entry of the drunken Alcibiades and a group of revelers, including a courtesan or flute girl. Alcibiades breaks the normal sympotic conventions by electing himself symposiarch, by drinking wine neat and making others do the same. He is subsequently incorporated into the more civilized arrangements of their group. But he breaks their conventions again by giving a eulogy of Socrates instead of the god of love, and by frank talk about sex between the two of them, though this turns out to be a frank talk about the absence of sex.